New York Attorney General Letitia James will announce her candidacy for governor this week, sources told the New York Times. She could be squaring off against Governor Cuomo's replacement, Governor Kathy Hochul, who has already received an endorsement from the New York Democratic Party for re-election. James, the state's first black woman attorney general, also joins the potentially crowded Democratic field, from New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio to public advocate Jumani Williams, who, according to Bloomberg News, has already filed official paperwork to run. But James has long been considered a formidable contender for the governorship. In a state that runs reliably blue, James could make history as the nation's first black woman governor if she comes out victorious in the primaries. Joining me now to discuss is Christina Greer, Associate Professor of Political Science and American Studies at Fordham University. Professor Greer, first, before we get to Letitia, I just want to get into the news of the day. Earlier today, a misdemeanor criminal complaint of forcible touching has been filed against former Governor Andrew Cuomo. The complaint alleges he forcibly touched the genitals or other intimate parts of an individual at the governor's mansion in December of last year. It was Attorney General James who oversaw that sexual misconduct inquiry into Cuomo and actually lifted her profile. So what do you make of this news on Cuomo, and how will it potentially impact Letitia James as she cranks up and throws her hat into the ring to run for governor?
Well, the criminal charges against Andrew Cuomo are pretty serious and severe. In many ways, Andrew Cuomo was sort of serving as a shadow candidate for this race. Many people thought that he wouldn't necessarily get in before the June primary, but he is still sitting on $18 million, which is a significant amount of money that he can do with it what he chooses in an electoral space. And so even though it looks like the race is shaping up between Hochul, James, Williams, and possibly de Blasio, maybe some few others, there's always this question as to whether or not Andrew Cuomo would come in the final hour and sort of put his thumb on the scale, because many New Yorkers still like and respect Andrew Cuomo. Many think that he was railroaded. They don't think that the 11 charges were all the same or severe. And so he still has quite a bit of support in the state. And that plus $18 million could really change the outcome. These charges today.
What do you mean by put his thumb on the scale? I'm just curious. What do you mean by put his thumb on the scale? You think he would run, or you think he would put his weight behind someone else in the race?
There's conversation as to whether or not he would run. He's essentially he's similar to Donald Trump in more ways than one. Both of them are Queen's boys, and the list goes on and on. But because he has been talking to various people, in Albany, that's all he's known, Charles. He's been in Albany since he was 19 years old, when his father was a 3-term governor. And obviously, Andrew Cuomo was finishing his 3rd term. That plus $18 million made him a question mark in this race, especially after a June primary. Would he run as an independent? What would he do with that $18 million? How would he jump back in the race if public opinion says folks don't really think that the charges were that severe and he was possibly, accused and he shouldn't have been? There have been quite a few New Yorkers who steadfastly support the former governor. These charges, though, make it very difficult for Andrew Cuomo to enter back into the political realm in ways that he may have wanted to with that $18 million.
Let's talk more specifically about Letitia James and her chances. It looks to me that Hochul made a defensive move when she chose a black man from Harlem as her lieutenant governor, because she was trying to blunt the support that could come out of the city for a black candidate. Is that going to work?
There's so many different angles that we can look at this, Charles. So Kathy Hochul has definitely been a shark since day one, when she, took over as governor of New York State. And then a few days later, she didn't want to play cat and mouse with the press and said, yes, I am actually running for re-election. Many people thought she would play the would she, won't she game for a few weeks, maybe even a few months, and she refused to. And so she's been galvanizing donor support. She's got the support of Emily's List, which is run by a black woman, LaFonza Butler. She has the support of the NAACP in Manhattan, run by a black woman, Hazel Dukes. She chose Brian Benjamin, who's a former state senator from Harlem, but he does have deep connections in Albany, something that Kathy Hochul did not necessarily have. The difference is, Charles, in New York City, much of the power base has sort of moved over to Brooklyn, which is where Tish James is from, Jumani Williams, our presumptive mayor Eric Adams, who will be elected on November 2nd. So the Black power base in many ways is Brooklyn these days. And so Tish James is coming from a space where there are quite a few people who wanted her as Attorney General because she shuffled the deck, moving her out of the public advocate's race, moving her out of a contention for mayor, opened up a lot of seats for quite a few people across the 5 boroughs and in Albany when Tish James was out of New York City politics and into the Attorney General's race. Similarly, although Kathy Hochul has quite a few donors and she's definitely been quite aggressive fundraising and going all around the state, keep in mind, she is our first upstate governor, Democratic governor in decades. Tish James still has significant labor support, and removing Tish James as AG does open up quite a few, again, individuals shuffling the deck across many of the boroughs. And so I think that there'll be quite a few people who do want to see Tish James as governor because that frees up the Attorney General's seat. It might free up a Brooklyn DA's seat. It might free up subsequently some seats in Albany or the city council, and the list goes on and on. And so Tish James has been a steadfast public servant and has quite a few friends across the 5 boroughs, and obviously has been making some friends in Albany. And she should not be discounted. Obviously, it's a challenge for any Black woman to run statewide, but I think that she is not going into this as a naive candidate by any stretch of the imagination.
Right. Do Jumani Williams and Letitia James draw from the same base in New York City, and would they be splitting that base, both being in the race?
Yeah, I think a lot of people think that they would split the base, and I don't think that's the case. I think Tish James and Kathy Hochul actually split more of a base. Jumani represents the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. And don't forget, Charles, Jumani ran for lieutenant governor roughly 4 years ago. So he's actually literally not new to this rodeo. And so he's actually been making friends with the progressive caucuses across the state. He has obviously been a strong supporter of Gideon Walton in Buffalo, who's running for mayor of Buffalo. Kathy Hochul has said that she's voted in Buffalo, has not said who she has voted for, and has not endorsed anyone. We know that Chuck Schumer and Kirsten Gillibrand have endorsed the progressive candidate who's on the ticket. But Jumani Williams does serve a progressive voice in New York City, and I don't think that he taps into the same base as Tish James at all.
Christina Greer, thank you for an amazing, insightful discussion tonight. I really appreciate it.